Welcome to Love Story with Lisa, where I share romantic audio stories. Today, I'll tell you a new love story. Abandoned on my wedding day, humiliated by him and his concubine, I threw down the bridal veil and entered the palace as Empress. The old emperor suddenly took a fancy to arrange a marriage between me and the Marquis of the Northern Garrison, Shenxian. The Marquis of the Northern Garrison was young and talented, a war god of the great Xia dynasty, never having lost a battle, sending the Xiongnu fleeing in terror. Who could remain unmoved by such a young general? I was overjoyed beyond measure. Little did I expect that on the day of our wedding, he never came to escort me in, nor did he stand beside me at the altar. I became the greatest laughingstock in the capital. I immediately flung off the red bridal veil and threw it to the ground. There is no groom on the wedding day. What use is this veil? When the guests caught sight of my stunning features, they fell into a frenzy of whispers, seemingly astonished that I dared defy propriety and show my face openly, yet I remained perfectly composed. My cold gaze swept across the crowd. I smiled and raised a cup with them, as though I myself were the groom. Seeing that I was not the least bit rattled, the guests smiled and praised. Miss Yen, we should call her Lady Shen now, truly worthy of being the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter. To remain so calm and gracious in such a situation. On the surface it was praise. In truth, they were all treating me as a joke. I turned and walked back to the bridal chamber. My mother had received the news and sent servants to bring me home. The senior maidservant who attended my mother looked at me with reddened eyes, her voice full of sorrow. First, young miss, the Marquis of the Northern Garrison is truly outrageous, daring to humiliate you like this. Madam sent this servant to escort you home. First, young miss need not endure this humiliation. I was shaken inside. My mother had cherished me since childhood and could not bear to see me suffer the slightest hardship. Yet the daughter she had raised so tenderly in the palm of her hand had been cruelly abandoned by her husband on the very day of their wedding. It was no different from grinding the Yen family's dignity into the dust. Mother loves me, and all the more reason I cannot fail to think of the Yen family. This marriage was an imperial decree. If I truly returned home, the emperor would surely seize the opportunity to make things difficult for the Yen family. My father was the current Grand Tutor, who had long been in the habit of remonstrating the emperor and had long since offended him. Would the emperor miss a chance like this to use it as a pretext to throw the whole family into prison? Defying an imperial decree was a crime that could exterminate 9 clans. When my mind cleared, I understood. The old emperor had deliberately arranged this marriage between me and the Marquis of the Northern Garrison precisely to wait for this moment. How could I hand the emperor a weakness and let him use it as a pretext to bring disaster upon the Yen family? I took a hairpin from my jewelry box and placed it in the hand of my mother's senior maidservant, smiling as I said, "Go back and tell mother to set her heart at ease. I will live very well here. Tell her, am I not my father's daughter?" The senior maidservant seemed persuaded by me. She only exchanged a few words of instruction with my dowry maids and then withdrew. I looked around the room blazing with red silk and satin. Losing all patience, I removed every pin and ornament from my hair, stripped off the wedding dress, swept all the peanuts and longan fruits off the bed, and lay down to rest. If they thought I would sit here dutifully waiting for the groom, they were sorely mistaken. Old Mama Lee from the Marquis's household pushed open the door and entered. Seeing me lying on the bed with disheveled hair, her expression immediately darkened. She strode up and called out loudly, "My lady, you are a well-bred lady of noble birth. How can you behave so improperly? You should be sitting on the edge of the bed with your veil on, waiting for the Lord to return. Would that not be far more fitting? My husband had thrown my dignity to the ground, and now even the servants in this household dared to shout at me. I slowly sat up, and my icy gaze cut her off mid-sentence. Silence. You are merely a bondservant. How dare you show such disrespect to me? Does this Marquis's household have any rules or not? Mama Lee saw my anger and her bluster deflated somewhat, but she still muttered, "This old servant is the Lord's wet nurse. I raised him from infancy. The Lord has always held this old servant in esteem, and I am only thinking of my lady's welfare. This matter, if it spreads outside, would truly be inappropriate." An old woman was actually presuming on her seniority to lecture me. I shook with anger. My white, delicate hand snatched a longan fruit still lying on the bed and hurled it hard at her face, my voice ice cold. He, Shenxian, abandoned me on the very day of our wedding. Is his reputation any better than mine? You raised him, you did not raise me. How dare you be so thick-skinned as to lecture me? The longan struck Mama Lee's face. She bowed her head but still tried to argue. This old servant dares not. I only ask my lady to calm her anger. One must be careful with words. I kept my face cold as frost, my bearing imposing and dignified. I am the legitimate daughter of the current Grand Tutor. This marriage was bestowed by imperial decree. From this day forward, I am the mistress of the Shen household. You are a mere bondservant who dares to be insolent to me. I have every reason to sell you off. With a thud, Mama Lee was so frightened that she sank to her knees, her whole body trembling as she kowtowed repeatedly. Please spare this old servant's life, my lady. This old servant was rude. Please spare her life. This old servant dares not again. The Marquis of the Northern Garrison, Shenxian, pushed open the door and entered. Seeing this very scene, his expression grew dark. He strode over to Mama Lee and helped her to her feet. Mama Lee immediately seemed to find her support, though she dared not say another word. Apparently my few remarks had truly frightened her, and she meekly withdrew. The room quickly emptied until only Shenxian and I remained. He wore a black robe. His features strikingly handsome, every inch the imposing figure at first glance. He stood at the edge of the bed, looking down at me from above, his expression frigid as ice, his voice cold. How dare you treat my wet nurse like that? I despised nothing more than someone looking down at me from above. Too lazy to get up, I climbed atop the bed hangings. Fortunately they were tall enough that I could stand without hitting my head. Now I was the one looking down at him, my voice dripping with sarcasm. The old woman was saying insulting things to me. Beating her to death would not even be excessive. What of it? Does the Marquis wish to strike me on behalf of a bondservant? I stared coldly into his rigid, death mask face, my red lips barely moving. Shenxian frowned slightly, but stopped defending Mama Lee, only sweeping his cold gaze over me with a heavy tone. You are a well-bred lady of noble birth. What kind of behavior is this? I burst out laughing until I doubled over before I could stop, my voice sharp and cutting. And you are a war god and general. On the day of your own wedding you abandon your wife, truly showing that without a father or mother to teach you, you have neither shame nor propriety. Shenxian's parents had died young. The Marquis of the Northern Garrison's household had only him left. Shenxian's cold shout rang out, "Silence! You are not permitted to insult my parents." I put my hands on my hips and laughed with arrogance. I did not insult them, I am scolding you. Shenxian, if you have the nerve, divorce me. Defying an imperial decree is a crime of beheading and clan extermination. Oh wait, your family has only you left. Divorce me, and only you die. What more could I ask? My eyes curved upward, seeing his fury. I felt all the more delighted inside. If I were divorced, I would be the wronged party. The emperor not only could not punish the Yen family but would have to console me. I watched him with great eagerness, hoping he would show a bit of backbone and divorce me. This young miss is done entertaining. As for the reputation of being divorced, I do not care in the least. Could it be worse than now? Shen Xian was goaded by me to the point that his face turned black, but in the end he dared not truly divorce me. He only flung back one cold sentence: "I will not touch you." Then he turned and left without looking back. I could not even be bothered to watch him go. I had my supper, took a leisurely bath, and went to bed in good spirits. The next day, Shen Xian and I went to the palace together to give thanks. Though neither of us was willing to accept this marriage, we still had to express gratitude for the imperial decree bestowing the union. Was that not ironic? The emperor looked at the two of us with narrowed eyes and praised us as a match made by heaven, a talented man and a beautiful woman, destined by fate, and even rewarded us generously with many precious objects. I smiled gently and thanked the imperial grace. On the way back to the marquis's household, I sat as far into the corner of the carriage as possible, away from Shen Xian, not bothering to say a single word to him. Shen Xian, seeing me so openly ignoring him, seemed somewhat displeased but also did not open his mouth. Only when we reached the gate of the marquis's household did he speak. "I have long had someone in my heart. She is the one who should rightfully be the mistress of the Shen household. By stealing this position from her, I have wronged her deeply. I will take her as a favored concubine. I hope in the future you will not be jealous and make things difficult for her." Hearing this, I immediately widened my eyes and smiled with mocking gentleness. "First, you should understand that I did not seize this marriage. Did you think I wanted to marry you? Second, you may take as many concubines as you like. Third, I will not be jealous." I did not even bother to glance at him and walked away at a leisurely pace. I had woken far too early today. I needed to go back to sleep. No mother-in-law and father-in-law to attend, no husband to wait upon. The entire rear courtyard of this great mansion was mine to command. All things considered, this life was quite comfortable. I slept straight through until noon, then cuddled with Xiaodu, the golden cat I had brought from my mother's home, and lazily reclined in the garden pavilion enjoying the scenery. One maidservant massaged my shoulders, one rubbed my feet, one fanned me, and one hand fed me pastries. The household steward had already handed me the management of the household accounts. I casually flipped through the ledgers and saw that only 10,000 taels of silver remained. I could not help but laugh. Thank goodness I was not depending on Shen Xian to feed me, otherwise I truly would have starved. I carelessly tossed the ledgers aside and continued to stroke my cat. How blissful, I thought, but all that peace was ruined by Shen Xian. He stood before me with an expression cold as stone, seemingly very displeased that I was living so comfortably. All the better, the more uncomfortable he was, the happier I felt. Shen Xian sat down beside me, his tone cold and indifferent. "I will hand over the authority to manage the household to the person in my heart. You need not concern yourself with any affairs of the household." I smiled faintly and pushed the pile of ledgers toward him. "Take them all. Do not leave them before my eyes to irritate me." Even without managing the household, my position could not be shaken by anyone, for I had my mother's family as my backing. I had no desire to manage these rotten ledgers. That miserable amount of silver was not even enough to feed the household, and if I had to make up the shortfall from my own dowry only to be scolded for it, that would truly be doing a good deed and getting cursed for it. Now that someone was willing to manage it in my place, I was only delighted. Shenxian took the ledgers and the authority token and turned to leave. That evening, after I had finished my supper at leisure, a woman in elaborate dress and jewels came to pay her respects to me. She was Shenxian's favored concubine, Nanwu. I waved my hand idly. "You may sit." Nanwu smiled gratefully and bowed her head, a look of shame crossing her face. "Elder sister, I have truly wronged you. Last night was supposed to be your wedding night. I have wronged you greatly." I could see at a glance that this concubine's visit was a pretense, showing off was the reality. Her outward words were courteous, but inwardly she was gloating. I smiled coolly. My mother only gave birth to one daughter. I have no younger sister who is a concubine. In the future, call me my lady. Nanwu paused, seemingly not expecting that I would not lose my temper as she had hoped. She pursed her lips and softened her voice. "My lady." I kept smiling. A concubine's life depends on gaining favor. Whether you have good days or not is up to you. I watched Nanwu's eyes redden, her expression as though I had utterly humiliated her. I was in excellent spirits. I leisurely brewed tea, took a sip, still better than the tea from my mother's house. Nanwu quietly sobbed, "My lady, I did not intend to contend for the household stewardship with you. It was the Lord who gave it to me. He would not let me refuse. I hope my lady will not be angry with the Lord." I glanced at her idly, stared at her in silence until she fidgeted nervously, then after a long moment I finally curled my lip. "Ah, the authority to manage the household is something I do not need. If he gave it to you, then keep it." Nanwu's tears immediately streamed down her face. She wept until her beautiful features wilted pitifully. Shenxian had heard that Nanwu came to my courtyard and followed her over. The moment he saw Nanwu weeping bitterly, his expression immediately darkened, and his voice turned cold and venomous. "How narrow-hearted are you? Why are you bullying Wu'er? What has she done wrong?" He launched into a tirade against me. I listened and felt my fury rise. I swung my arm and flung a teacup straight at his feet. The tea splashed and soaked his robe all over. Crash! Nanwu started violently, not expecting that I would even dare throw things at the lord of the house. I stared at him coldly. "Shenxian, not only are your eyes blind but so is your heart. Take your concubine and get out of here. In the future she need not come to pay her respects to me." Shenxian snorted coldly, bent down to carry Nanwu sideways in his arms, and turned to leave. I looked up to see that as she was carried away, Nanwu turned her head and flashed an arrogant, provocative smile, as if to say, "What does being the mistress matter? The one he loves is still me." I never had the slightest feeling for Shenxian to begin with. Whoever he favored was his own affair. I simply bowed my head and stroked Xiaodu, and began raising a few small fish as well. There was gossip outside, but I acted as though I could not hear it. On the third day of the return visit, I had originally intended to go to my parents' home alone. But the moment I set foot in the carriage, Shenxian climbed in after me. By instinct I shifted aside and frowned. "Why are you following?" Shenxian was displeased, his voice heavy. "I am going back with you. It was wrong of me from the very start with the wedding, but I did not intentionally neglect you. That day, Wu'er was gravely ill. I had to care for her." I languidly raised my hand to cut him off. "You need not tell me these things." Shenxian fell silent. Only after a long while did he lower his voice and change the subject. I am going back with you to avoid making His Majesty think I am displeased with this marriage." Ah, so he too was afraid of offending the emperor, which was why he had to accompany me on this return visit. I closed my eyes. I had no wish to listen to his chatter. Shen Qian said a few more sentences with no response from anyone. In the end, knowing better, he fell silent. When we arrived home, I joyfully threw myself into my mother's arms and burrowed into her lap, coaxing and fussing like a little child. "Mother, I missed you so terribly." My mother held me tightly and soothed me tenderly. "My child has suffered." No one paid attention to Shen Qian. He walked heavily behind me and I did not even bother to turn my head. The meal was not yet finished when my father erupted in fury and gave Shen Qian a thorough tongue lashing. Shen Qian did not argue back a single word. In the end he only said, "I will take good care of you, honor." My full name was Yan Lingyuan, a name I had always loved, but hearing it from Shen Qian's mouth made me feel as nauseated as if I had swallowed a blowfly. I stayed at my parents' home for half a day before I had to leave again. As we set off, my parents stuffed me full of all my favorite things. I was so reluctant I could hardly bear to go. My mother said gently, "Silly child, if you miss home, just come back." Once I was in the carriage, my heart sank. I lifted the curtain and looked out. My parents were still standing exactly where they had been, watching the carriage with their eyes, and my tears instantly welled up beyond control. I raised my hand to cover my face, tears flowing through my fingers, and cried quietly. Shen Qian's voice sounded near my ear, drawing my mind back. I composed myself and wiped my tears. When I looked up, I found him sitting right beside me, so close it made me uncomfortable. He extended a handkerchief toward me. I immediately increased the distance between us and said coldly, "Stay away from me, you disgust me." Shen Qian's hand froze in midair. He silently looked at me twice, then slowly withdrew it. When we returned to the Marquis's household, I stepped down from the carriage and immediately saw Nan was standing at the gate. Shen Qian followed close behind, and Nan was stepped forward, her foot slightly angled, predictably, and fell straight into Shen Qian's arms. She leaned against his chest and turned her head to smile at me, her eyes full of triumph. I only gave her an indifferent glance. Such petty schemes to compete for favor were the province of minor concubines alone. I did not even deign to spare Shen Qian a glance, and coldly turned to leave. For several days afterward I did not see Shen Qian. Nor did the concubine come to pay her respects. My spirits were at ease. If this were how the rest of my life would go, there would be nothing wrong with it. No worry about food or clothing. A month later, Shen Qian appeared before me, his tone cold and flat. "My beloved is with child. You are the mistress of the Shen household. From now on, whatever she eats and wears must be according to your standard allowance. You are not permitted to use your status to bully her. She is gentle and virtuous. I hope you will treat her kindly so that the two of you may live in harmony." Hearing those words, my expression immediately chilled, my bearing pressing and intimidating. I am the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter. Everything I use is provided by the Yan family's dowry. What does that have to do with you? Do you think this rundown Marquis's household can even afford to maintain your concubine? The household stewardship is in whose hands? She can eat whatever she wants, even if she empties out this Marquis's household entirely. It has nothing to do with me. Shen Qian frowned, his eyes filled with displeasure. You have married into this household. Your food and clothing must come from the household as well. Do not try to intimidate me by invoking the Yan family. Although the stewardship is in Wuer's hands, she conducts herself with propriety and lives within the concubine's allowance. She did not wish to live according to your standard allowance, fearing it would damage your dignity. It was I who, unable to bear her grievance, came to speak with you first. Once you agree, she can then rest easy and tend to her pregnancy. Do not keep targeting her. I laughed coldly, my gaze calm as still water but my voice sharp. When did I ever bully her? Did she come and say this to you? Shen Qian sat down beside me and poured himself a cup of tea, drinking it down before slowly opening his mouth. She never said a word against you. It was all something I witnessed with my own eyes. I heard this and produced a cold smile. Then your eyes are truly blind. I then threw the piece of preserved fruit in my hand straight at his face. Have you not gone to look at the pitiful ledgers of your own household to see how much silver is left? Go see for yourself before talking to me. So she wants the mistress's standard allowance? This lady would be willing to give it, only I fear she cannot afford it. Let me be clear, everything I use is from my own dowry. I have not eaten so much as a single grain of this household's rice. My parents love me and prepared an extremely lavish dowry for me. Dozens of shops in the capital, thousands of mu of fertile land, several manor estates, and countless luxurious goods, enough for a lifetime. My daily meals are all exquisite. I would never let myself be wronged. This marquis's household barely has enough to eat, yet your concubine dares to dream of being on par with me. How truly thick-skinned. Shen Qian radiated cold from every pore, momentarily speechless. He had clearly looked over the household's ledgers himself. After a long pause he stared fixedly at me. On the battlefield I captured considerable war spoils, but I distributed them all as compensation to the families of fallen soldiers. The remainder I presented as betrothal gifts to the Yen family. You must have brought those betrothal gifts with you. I will not touch your dowry, but I hope you will return those betrothal gifts so that she need not suffer. I was so infuriated by his words that I burst out laughing and coolly crossed my arms. Betrothal gifts given to me are mine. Do not dream of touching a single coin. I shook my head slowly. Shen Qian, your shamelessness is truly an eye-opener for me. I always thought you had already reached the pinnacle of shamelessness. I never expected you could sink even lower. I immediately turned my head and called out coldly, Pizzi, bring a bowl of abortive herbs and take it to the Lord's concubine. You will not go. Shen Qian's eyes blazed. He pointed at me with a trembling hand, his voice strangled with fury. You are truly vicious. Why can you not even spare a child? I lounged back languidly and lazily lifted one eyelid to enjoy Shen Qian's enraged expression, savoring it until I had my fill before indolently opening my mouth. She is only a concubine. Does she think she deserves to give birth while I, the legal first wife, stand before her? Yes, you may not care about dignity, but the Yen family does. You try and find a single aristocratic family where a lesser-born child is delivered before the legitimate wife has even had one. Shen Qian was momentarily struck dumb. The fury choked in his chest made his face flush red, but he still refused to give in. He said coldly, once the child is born, we record it in your name. Would that not make it legitimate? Besides, you cannot have children yourself. What is wrong with raising that child? In the future I want to have many more children with Wooer. All of them can be recorded in your name. They would be your own flesh and blood. Shen Qian said those words as if bestowing a great favor, wanting me to raise children for her and yet wearing a face full of smug satisfaction. I could not help but burst out laughing. Looking at this man before me, he bore no resemblance whatsoever to the young general he had once been. What magnificent calculations, wanting to father a whole brood of children to devour my dowry. What a beautiful dream. Shen Qian, divorce me, or give her the abortive herbs. You choose. My gaze fixed steadily on him, my voice calm, without the slightest trace of anger, only finding it laughable. How laughable, that such a person had been the young war god of the great Xia. Shen Qian's face darkened like the bottom of a pot, his fists clenched and unclenched, unclenched and clenched again, and at last he only snorted coldly, glared at me ferociously, and turned to leave. I slowly turned my head to look at Pizzi. Pizzi was gritting her teeth, so furious her eyes had gone red, and she spoke firmly, "This servant will personally watch that woman drink it down." I nodded and waved to let her withdraw. When you do things, I am at ease, no longer in the mood for scenery gazing. I took the maids out for a stroll in the streets, bought a carriage load of everything I fancied, filling 2 carriages to the brim, and returned home in triumph. Pizzi stepped to my side and bowed her head to report, "My lady, it has been taken care of." The corner of my mouth curved slightly, and my smooth white hand gave a light wave. "Go pay a visit to the Lord's concubine. Conveniently bring her some tonic." I walked smiling into Nanwa's courtyard. The place was exquisitely decorated, yet no matter how she adorned it, it could not compare to my courtyard. Going all the way into the bedchamber, I saw her lying weakly on the bed. I smiled serenely and walked over, gracefully sitting down beside her. "Honored concubine, I heard you miscarried." "I was just out shopping today and bought quite a few fine things. I stopped by to visit you and reward you with some tonics." Nanwa's face went chalk white, her body trembled, her eyes blazed red with hatred as she stared at me, gritting her teeth. "My lady, why must you be so cruel? Is this the upbringing of the Yen family?" Pizzi shouted, "Insolence! A mere little concubine dares to question my lady?" She surged forward as if to slap Nanwu. I raised my hand to stop her and said calmly, "She has just miscarried, her body is weak. Wait until she has recovered before striking her." I leisurely observed Nanwa's expressions for a while longer, feeling increasingly elated. She had always liked to act arrogant before me, now she needed to learn who the true mistress of this household was. Even her child could not be protected. I had never been a kind person. This notorious reputation I was willing to accept. I slowly rose to my feet, lowered my eyes to look at Nanwu, and spoke in a voice as gentle as a spring breeze. "Divorce me or give her the abortive herbs." I let Shen Qian choose. He chose the herbs. A single sentence drove straight into the heart. Nanwa's face drained of every drop of color. She opened her mouth and coughed up a mouthful of blood, dyeing the pillow and bedding crimson. She shook as she propped herself up and glared at me. "You are lying. It was clearly you who was cruel. You want to push all the blame onto the Lord." "The Lord is not that kind of person." I lowered my eyes to look at my slender fingers. My nails had just been painted a pale powdery pink that I found very pleasing, and I kept my calm smile as I raised my head. "He, Shen Qian, is precisely that kind of person. If he divorced me he would be questioned by His Majesty, and all the military power in his hands would be stripped. You are merely a concubine. How much is your worth in his heart? Look at it this way. He did not even dare resist the marriage arrangement in the first place. In the end he only dared take you as a concubine in secret. When it came to a choice between power and beauty, he chose power. Shen Qian holds military power and has won several battles. The old emperor would never allow him to keep growing stronger. This marriage was deliberately arranged by the emperor in the first place. If I had defied the decree, the old emperor would have used it as a pretext to punish the Yen family. If Shen Qian had defied the decree, the emperor would have seized the opportunity to take back the military power in his hands. The old emperor had calculated very cleverly. It is just that neither Shenxian nor I dared to defy the decree. Who knows what else the emperor will do in the future? Nanwu listened, her eyes filled with shock and disbelief. She coughed up several more mouthfuls of blood, her face white as paper, grief-stricken to the point of despair. Shenxian pushed open the door and entered. Seeing his beloved in such a state, he was so furious his eyes turned red. He reached out to push me aside. I tilted my body slightly and gently evaded the hands swinging toward me. Shenxian glared at me fiercely, then turned and gently gathered Nanwu into his arms, carefully wiping the bloodstains from the corner of her lips. Wuer, I will summon the imperial physician immediately. Nanwu weakly raised her head and forced a gentle smile. My lord, do not blame my lady, it was not intentional. It is this concubine's fault for not being proper. I should not have given birth before my lady. My lady even deliberately brought tonics to gift this concubine. This concubine is truly grateful. Pizzi respectfully dragged a stool over to my side. I slowly sat down, the corner of my mouth curved up slightly. I loved watching theater, and today's performance was truly splendid. Shenxian's expression grew increasingly grim. Suppressing his fury, he bent his head and spoke gently to soothe Nanwu. I will not allow you to debase yourself like this. In my heart, you are the true mistress of the Shen household. Nanwu's body trembled, tears streamed down her face, her voice shaking. This concubine dares not. My lady is the true mistress of this household. Shenxian turned his head to look at me, his gaze sharp as a blade. Yan Lingyuan, you have already destroyed the flesh and blood in her womb. Why won't you let her go? Do you need to drive her to her death before you are satisfied? Clap, clap. I slowly applauded twice, signaling appreciation for a performance that had moved one to tears. I tilted my head toward the brocade box beside me. I was kind enough to give her a gift of 10-year premium ginseng. Is that not good enough? Shenxian's gaze flicked to the gift box. His expression shifted slightly. Nanwu lightly tugged at Shenxian's sleeve, her tears brimming over, and said grievingly, My lord, please just have a child with my lady. Shenxian pursed his lips. Do not say foolish things. Nanwu bit her lip, a tear rolled down her face. But this concubine is only a concubine. I cannot give birth before my lady. Shenxian soothed her gently. Do not worry, I have my own plan. I sat to one side listening to everything and barely stifled a snort of contempt. Humph, he wanted to have children with me. I did not even want to bother. I slowly rose to my feet, letting my hem lightly sweep the floor, leaving behind the gift box and turning to walk away. That evening I sat at leisure enjoying sweet pastries and listening to Pizzi recount the fine theater unfolding in the concubine's courtyard. It was said that after Shenxian departed, Nanwu smashed things throughout the room, even throwing the gift box I had given her to the servants. I laughed coldly. With a temperament as destructive as hers, 10 Shenxians could not afford to keep her. Pizzi knew I loved watching theater. She too had gradually become absorbed in recounting such gossip, narrating it with a beaming face. I squinted and smiled, thinking silently, if you want to provoke me, you must pay a price. For the entire following month I was too lazy to leave the household and even less inclined to socialize. Nothing but stroking the cat, drinking tea, eating well, and admiring flowers and scenery. Occasionally I would encounter Shenxian in the garden pavilion once or twice. Every time we met, he would fling me a look of contempt, as though wishing he could say aloud, You are a useless thing occupying the mistress's seat in my household. I laughed coldly inside. if you have the nerve, defy the imperial decree. How dare you pour all your anger on me? What sense does that make? If I was unhappy, they would not be at peace either. After several such encounters, Shen Qian finally could endure no more. His face darkened, and he walked straight up to me. Are you doing this on purpose? I looked up and smiled coolly, my voice even and full of contempt. It would be best from now on for us to stay out of each other's way. I will not provoke you. I ask only that you not come and entangle yourself with me. I only want to live out this life in peace. When you see me, step aside and walk away. Do not come before me to throw your weight around. Shen Qian's face turned black as the bottom of a pot. He glared at me fiercely, but in the end said nothing more and turned to leave. Afterward he truly rarely appeared before me, and on the few occasions they did cross paths, he would quickly turn and walk far away. I smiled quietly inside. The household felt more and more pleasant. The household management was in Nanwa's hands, and all the invitation letters from the great aristocratic families of the capital were sent directly to her. At first the gatekeeper still brought them to me, but I was too lazy to care and told them to pass everything to Nanwu. Nanwu, taking advantage of the situation, came strutting before me to show off. I only smiled coolly, treating it as theater, and waited for her to put on a good performance. It was said she was a woman Shen Qian had brought back from the frontier, formerly of humble origin, and her speech and bearing both revealed crude, clumsy inadequacy. The prominent ladies of the capital were all sharp-eyed. Why would any of them stoop to show face to a concubine? Just as I had predicted, after attending a few banquets she was snubbed so badly that she came running home in tears to Shen Qian. In the end Shen Qian brought her before me. I regarded the two of them idly and asked indifferently, "What have you two come for? Do you not know I am very busy?" I was sincerely unwilling to waste time on these two. Shen Qian's face went dark as ink. "What are you busy with? Is not everything in this household managed by Wu? Nanwa lightly tugged at Shen Qian's sleeve, motioning for him to say no more. She wept and knelt before me, tears streaming like rain. "My lady, it is this concubine who was wrong. This concubine should not have gone out to attend banquets without my lady's permission. This concubine knows her birth was humble and there is much she does not understand. I only beg my lady to instruct me. Whatever punishment my lady decrees, this concubine accepts." Seeing this, Shen Qian was reluctant to press further. He quickly bent down to help Nanwa to her feet, gently wiped her tears, and then turned to look at me. "You are the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter, carefully instructed since childhood. I hope you will teach Wu how to conduct herself and get along with the ladies of the capital." I looked at them both in surprise. "Why do you not invite a few female teachers of repute to instruct her?" Shen Qian's expression cooled and his tone flattened. "I have already invited some, but those women are all flatterers who curry favor with the powerful. Upon learning they would be teaching Wu, they all refused. As for less renowned teachers who were willing to come, I consider them beneath the dignity of being my beloved's teachers." Nanwa's face briefly showed embarrassment. She bowed her head in shame. "Ah, now I understand. So you could not hire anyone qualified, and only as a last resort did you come to beg me, yet you act as though I am the one gaining some great advantage." Shen Qian's remark was rather amusing. He praised others for being sycophants while himself looking down on those of low birth. Seeing me silent, Shen Qian seemed to realize his tone had been too harsh. He cleared his throat softly, his gaze becoming gentler as he looked at me, his voice softening as well. "You honor, it was my fault before. But none of this had anything to do with Wu. I hope you will not hold it against her and will instruct her once. I calmly raised my hand, my voice cold as ice. Please call me my lady. What had happened could not be erased by a single apology. Even if they died before me, I would not bat an eyelid. Shen Qian bent his head slightly, lowering his voice. My lady. I smiled and nodded. Very well, I agree. I turned to look at Nanwu, my tone even. Come every day at the hour of Chen, and leave at the hour of you. Nanwu heard this and was overjoyed. She hastily bowed her head in thanks. Many thanks to my lady. Shen Qian also finally showed me a gentle smile, wrapped his arm around Nanwu's waist, and the two left before me in intimate closeness. Pizzi stood beside me, puzzled, and asked quietly, My lady, why did you agree? I smiled faintly, my eyes cold. She is a concubine by status. She must learn the rules proper to a concubine. You will supervise her on my behalf. Pizzi immediately understood. Her eyes lit up. This servant will strictly instruct her in the proper rules of a concubine. The next day, Nanwu rose very early and arrived before me. Pizzi immediately directed her to sit and wait in the main hall. I slept until I woke naturally. By the time I rose it was already past noon. I leisurely finished my midday meal before remembering Nanwu was waiting, and then strolled over with my maids. Nanwu saw me and her expression was somewhat displeased, but presumably remembering that she had asked a favor of me, she blinked and quickly concealed all her anger. After that, the teaching of proper concubine etiquette was handed entirely to Pizzi. Pizzi taught in a stern voice, seeing the mistress, one must perform the full grand salutation. Whatever direction the mistress points, one must not dare go the opposite way. East means east, west means west, no talking back, no interrupting, no resistance. Nanwu knelt and listened to instruction. When tired she was permitted to stand and rest briefly, but after resting she had to kneel again. I sat to one side leisurely drinking tea, silently watching Nanwu's expression shift from forced smiles to growing hatred and resentment. In just one day she could no longer bear it. That evening she ran off to find Shen Qian and cried and complained about me. Sure enough, the next day Shen Qian stormed furiously into my courtyard and shouted, Yan Lingyuan. I never imagined you would be so petty. You promised to teach Wu, then turned around and humiliated her behind her back. You have gone too far. Wu is gentle and obedient. What on earth has she done to deserve such cruelty from you? I smiled faintly, reached out and took the teacup from my hand and hurled it straight at his feet. It was you yourself who told me to teach her the proper rules. And a concubine's rules are precisely a concubine's rules. Where did I teach wrongly, Shen Qian? Do not be foolish. It truly makes me sick. You walked right up to the door to be humiliated. How could I possibly pass up such a perfect opportunity? Did they think a single word of apology would make me forget all my past humiliations and teach Nanwu with wholehearted devotion? Shen Qian was left speechless by my words, his face flushed red. In the end he dared not refute me and only snorted coldly, turned, and left. Afterward he could only hire an obscure female teacher to instruct Nanwu in etiquette. Nanwu still represented the household at the capital's ladies' banquets, only to be mocked to her face and sneered at behind her back. My father gathered sufficient evidence and submitted a memorial impeaching Shen Qian for favoring his concubine and undermining his legal wife. The old emperor summoned Shen Qian into the palace in fury and reprimanded him harshly, conveniently stripping him of a portion of the military power in his hands. I sat at ease reading the letter my father had sent. In it he described in meticulous detail how the old emperor had berated Shen Qian while my father stood right beside them watching the whole scene. When I finished reading, the corner of my mouth curved up in a smile. It was still my parents who loved me most. They could never bear to let me suffer the slightest injustice. Shen Qian was likely frightened by the emperor's reprimand, so for a period of time thereafter he did not appear before me at all, and Nanwu too obediently did not dare go out to attend banquets anymore. After so long cooped up inside, I wanted some fresh air. I visited quite a few shops, and finally stopped at a restaurant, intending to order some food. The moment I stepped inside, I ran into an old rival from my unmarried days, Song Yusen. She was the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister, not a bit beneath me in birth and standing, her reputation roughly equal to mine, but our personalities were incompatible, and every time we met we clashed. 2 months ago she had been betrothed by imperial decree as a consort to the third prince. I glanced at her idly, withdrew my gaze, and walked straight into a private room. Song Yusen saw me and changed direction to follow, unself-consciously sitting down beside me and lifting her chin slightly with a mocking laugh. Yan Lingyuan, you live more and more uselessly. You let a common concubine walk all over your head, while you yourself don't dare show your face outside. You have truly lost all face. I propped my chin in my hand and smiled at her. I am simply too lazy to socialize. Besides, Shen Qian only has one concubine. Your third prince, on the other hand, surely he has more than one concubine wife, does he not? We had grown up together and understood each other's wounds perfectly. What she hated most was the thought of her husband having other women on the side, yet she had been given in marriage by the emperor, with no path of refusal. We were ultimately just tools in other people's hands. Song Yusen snorted and glared at me, then said nothing more. She just told the waiter to bring wine and began tipping back cup after cup with her head thrown back. I had to pry the wine flask from her hands and signal her personal maidservant to escort her back to the third prince's manor. Once that was done, I finally ate and drank my fill at leisure and returned home. The moment I returned to the household, I saw Nanwu sitting in the pavilion, one hand gently stroking her belly, her face full of tender affection. Shen Qian was half kneeling before her, even pressing his ear against her belly to listen, his face radiating pure joy. At first glance it was obvious she was pregnant again. Nanwu saw me and in fright pushed Shen Qian away, quickly sinking to her knees. Her eyes went red, her voice choked. My lady, this concubine did not intend to conceive. I beg you to spare this child. The child is innocent, after all, this is the Lord's second child. Please spare it for the Lord's sake. Whatever anger you have, direct it at this concubine can bear it. The smile on Shen Qian's face instantly vanished. He bent to help Nanwu to her feet, his eyes full of disgust as he looked at me. How can you be so cruel? The child is innocent. Humph, the drama of competing for favor was beginning again. I had not even opened my mouth yet when I was already labeled cruel. I walked over at a leisurely pace. Nanwu gently leaned against Shen Qian's chest and sobbed. My lord, it is all this concubine's fault. I should not have become pregnant. Do not be angry with my lady. Shen Qian's face turned black as a thundercloud. He was so furious he trembled, and almost raised his hand to strike me. I only raised my head slightly, my eyes cold and steady on him. He drew several deep breaths and in the end suppressed his fury. He only gently comforted Nanwu. Do not be afraid. This child will certainly be kept safe. I will not allow anyone to harm it. I caught the flash of smug triumph that skimmed across the depths of Nanwu's eyes, and I heard Shen Qian swearing to protect the child. I very much wanted to see just how he intended to protect it. That night, Shen Qian came personally to see me. his expression heavy as lead. I want to dissolve this marriage with you. As long as you agree, I will petition His Majesty for approval. In exchange, you must not harm the child in Wu's womb. The Shen household cannot contain a woman as narrow-minded and vicious as you. At first I had not even been thinking of such a thing, but time and again he had harmed Nanwu. He had disappointed me to the extreme. And now he had come and called me a vicious wife right to my face. I was momentarily stunned, and then a wild, ecstatic joy surged up inside me, so overwhelming that I did not even bother to argue with him for calling me vicious. I could not wait to ask, "How do you plan to do it?" Our marriage was an imperial decree. Even to dissolve it requires the emperor's consent. Will he surrender all his military power? Shen Xian said irritably through clenched teeth. You need not know that. Hurry up and pack your things and get out to the Yan family. I do not wish to see you for even one more moment. Smack! I immediately raised my hand and slapped Shen Xian squarely across the face, my voice cold as ice. Watch your mouth. Best to dissolve this marriage as quickly as possible, otherwise I cannot say when I might lose my patience and send a bowl of abortive herbs to your beloved concubine. That slap I threw with every ounce of my strength. A handprint appeared rapidly on Shen Xian's face. He stared at me with cold, piercing eyes. You only dare rely on the fact that I do not strike women. Just looking at you makes me sick. Raise your hand and point to the door. Get out of here. Shen Xian choked on a bellyful of fury. His face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, and with a cold snort he turned and stormed off. The next day, Shen Xian entered the palace. When he returned to the household, he handed me a letter of dissolution. I smiled brilliantly, happily packed my belongings, and finally could escape from this household. I did not want to stay even one more moment. Nanwa's face lit up as she stepped before me, her voice sharp and gloating. My lady, oh no, I should call you Miss Yan now. You were abandoned on your wedding day with no one to escort you. In less than a year you have been driven from the door. You will surely become the laughingstock of the world. Does that feel good? Was it not you who caused me to be ridiculed when I attended banquets? The wheel of fortune truly turns. You have your day at last too. My spirits were excellent. Hearing her sarcasm, I did not even feel like being angry. I just lazily glanced at her, my voice indifferent. Only someone who has stooped as low as you would lower herself to love a man like Shen Xian. The smile on Nanwa's face stiffened, but she very quickly rallied to smile again. I know. As long as I am pregnant, the Lord will certainly not let you harm my child. Look, the Lord has chosen me and abandoned you. In his heart, the one he loves most is me. I curled my lip in a cool smile. But you are still only a concubine. The Great Xia does not permit raising a concubine to the position of legal wife, unless Shen Xian earns a great merit and petitions for an imperial decree. Even if he were to be granted permission to make you his legal wife, you would still only be a concubine elevated to that status. The ladies and daughters of the capital will still look down on you. Nanwa's eyes flashed with a sudden burning shame. Tears welled up, and her voice grew aggrieved. Why must you humiliate me like this? Even if I am a concubine, I am willing to stay by the Lord's side for all my life and give him many children. I looked at her tearful face and immediately guessed. Shen Xian was definitely about to appear. Sure enough, just as expected, Shen Xian came storming in. He planted himself before Nanwu, his eyes blazing as he looked at me. Yan Lingyuan, I showed respect to you as the Yan family's legitimate daughter, which is why I gave you a letter of dissolution rather than a simple repudiation. You are already a woman who has been cast aside, yet you still dare to bully my beloved. You are truly vicious. I looked at Shenxian coolly. Inside, the sea was calm and the waves undisturbed. A person who did not matter lacked the qualifications to stir me. I even managed a cold smile and said one sentence. I wish you both 100 years of harmony and white-haired togetherness. My maids had long since packed all my belongings and made a thorough inventory of the dowry. I took everything with me, unhurriedly left the Shen Marquis' household, my heart as light as air. As for the few betrothal gifts Shen Xian had once given me, I did not even bother to take them. I wanted nothing from the Shen household. If I was breaking clean, I would break completely clean. Stepping out through the grand gates of the Shen household, I was surprised to find my father and mother had come to fetch me in person. My heart was stirred. I lifted the curtain of the carriage and jumped in, throwing myself into my mother's arms. Mother, my mother's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she gently patted me. My child has suffered. Do not be sad anymore. We are going home. I nodded, the rims of my eyes burned red. When Shen Xian bullied me, I had not shed a single tear. When Nanhua provoked me, I felt no anger at all. But nestled against my mother's breast, hearing her gentle words of comfort, my heart suddenly softened and my tears could not be held back. My mother grew all the more heartbroken. Her voice broke as she soothed me. You honor, no more grieving. Mother is here. My father's expression was as dark as still water. He ground his teeth. Shen Xian, that beast, I should have beaten him to death with a stick back then. I quickly shook my head and wiped my tears, smiling as I said, it is because I am so happy that I am crying. I can finally go home. I want to stay by father's and mother's sides for the rest of my life. My mother raised her hand and gently wiped my tears, smiling warmly. All right, mother will keep you for life. My father then solemnly added that Shen Xian would have to surrender all his military power before the old emperor would consent to the dissolution. I saw the darkness on my father's face and feared he would immediately go fetch a sword to chop someone. I quickly grabbed his sleeve and said, I truly am not heartbroken, not sad. I am absolutely overjoyed to be released. Seeing me smiling brilliantly, my father's expression finally eased slightly. My dissolution and return home with my dowry set the whole capital buzzing with gossip again. I did not bother to take it to heart. I just sat at ease stroking my cat, smiling from ear to ear and unable to stop. My mother also told me that every time my father ran into Shen Xian he berated him mercilessly, and Shen Xian could only bow his head and endure it without daring to talk back. The military power in Shen Xian's hands had already been confiscated. Now he was nothing but a leisurely, useless marquis, who would look up to him. I was staying peacefully at home without stepping outside, when my old rival Song Yusen came poking at my door to mock me. So now you are truly finished. In this lifetime you can forget about making a decent marriage. I raised my eyes and smiled cheerfully. Reputation? I could not care less. Escaping from that scoundrel Shen Xian, you cannot imagine how elated I am. Even in my dreams I would laugh out loud. As for remarrying, after this dissolution I had not planned to marry again anyway. Living alone is also perfectly fine, is it not? Song Yusen was taken aback, seemingly unable to fathom that I could think this way. A month after settling at home, I decided to visit the great state temple to pray for blessings. My father heard the news and arranged for over a dozen bodyguards to accompany and protect me. I took a carriage to the foot of the mountain where the great state temple stood. To show sincerity to the Buddha, I got down and walked each step of the way to the summit on foot. Unexpectedly, halfway up I ran into Shen Xian and Nan was sitting in a pavilion on the mountainside. I calmly withdrew my gaze, not bothering to slow my steps, and simply kept walking. Nanwa noticed me and her eyes filled with contempt. "Miss Yen, as a woman who has been cast aside, do you have any face left to venture outside? Are you here to pray to the Buddha for a new match? Are you not afraid even the Buddha will be too annoyed to want to look at you?" I slowly turned around. My gaze was cold as I looked at Nanwu. Sitting here embracing each other before the Buddha like this is truly irreverent and without propriety. "Shenxian, you have raised such a concubine wife who knows no manners, yet dare to let her out to bite people. It is fortunate that I am magnanimous enough not to hold it against her. The titled consort ladies of the capital would not have been so forgiving. She would not even know how she died." I turned to look at Shenxian, my gaze filled with disgust. I only wanted to come out for some fresh air. Yet I have to run into this odious pair. Nanwa weakly leaned against Shenxian's chest, tears glistening in her eyes. Her voice choked. "My lord, this concubine is only a concubine wife. I should not go out and make a spectacle of myself. Let us return to the household quickly, so as not to disturb the peace of the Buddha. Please do not quarrel with Miss Yen on my behalf. She has every right to be angry with me." Shenxian's eyes instantly blazed. He stared at me. "Yen Lingyuan, you are no longer the mistress of the Shen household. Why do you insist on making things difficult for wooer? Is it her fault that she is a concubine? She is gentle and kind-hearted. Ever since our dissolution, she has always blamed herself, believing it was she who caused us to part. I brought her here to pray precisely to cheer her up. She had only just begun to console herself when you come here to torment her." Shenxian truly had the thickest face of anyone, day after day weeping and pleading his case before me, and it was enough to make me laugh with fury. I gave a cold laugh and strode toward the pavilion. My gaze locked onto Nanwu. I raised my hand and delivered a resounding slap straight across her cheek. Nanwu was struck so hard she stood dazed, completely unprepared for me to strike her in such a place. Shenxian too was stunned for a moment, then immediately flew into a rage and lunged to slap back. But I had already stepped back. My bodyguards surged forward in unison, their cold eyes fixed on Shenxian. Nanwu's tears poured like a torrent. Her voice was choked. "My lord, this concubine knows she was wrong. I should not have appeared before Miss Yen. But this capital is so small, how can one avoid crossing paths with her? My lord, please take this concubine back to my family's home. Once I am gone, Miss Yen will no longer be angry. I do not wish to anger her further. This concubine knows it was all her own fault. It is she who caused the two of you to end up this way. This concubine is not worthy of being alive." As she spoke, Nanwu even made a show of rushing toward a pillar of the pavilion to dash herself to death. Shenxian in a panic threw his arms around her, his voice anguished and heartbroken. "Wooer, listen to me. This is not your fault, do not blame yourself." Then he whirled around and shouted furiously at me, "Yen Lingyuan, do you see? It is you who have driven her to this point. You struck her right before my eyes, and behind my back. How could you not have been bullying her even more?" I narrowed my eyes and stared at them coldly, wishing I could draw a sword and cut them both down. But Shenxian was a marquis, the war god of the great Xia. I could not kill him, I could only cut him with words. "Nanwu, Shenxian may call you his beloved, but in the end you are still only a concubine wife. Even if you bear him children, they will be lesser born. To kill someone you must strike at the heart." Nanwu flushed crimson with rage. Her tears streamed down all the more pitifully. Shenxian's face darkened, a flash of murderous intent appeared in his eyes. Seeing them furious yet utterly helpless against me, I curled my lip in a cold smile. my spirits excellent. I turned and continued up the mountain, not letting anyone support me, stepping up each stair by my own strength all the way to the summit. Kneeling before the Buddha, I quietly prayed. I pray the Buddha bless my father and mother to be healthy and safe for all their days. I pray for my elder brother in Jiangnan to return safely home soon. After praying, I wholeheartedly offered 10,000 taels of silver as incense money. The abbot, hearing that I had donated such a large sum, personally sent a disciple to escort me into the meditation chamber. The chamber door gently opened, and from within stepped out a young man clad in a deep black robe. A jade belt circled his waist, and from his side hung a jade pendant that gleamed brilliantly. His features were strikingly, superlatively handsome. His eyes were like glazed jade concealing a cold luminous light, and around him he carried an air of cold, noble aloofness, as though all things in the world were beneath his notice, making others before him instinctively bow their heads in shame. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.